If I take a bullet or something,
where was this in South Africa? In Botswana.
yeah, I'm here.
She would be the bottom. We were right. This sounds like a grand trip.
Okay.
It sounds like a hospital.
Okay.
My name was okay, well, I'm trying to run out the. The one end and go back. Right. There's no, there's one in the hard way, which road is behind. There's a fever. Okay. Cause on the map, it goes straight through. And I'm
No,
like,
no. No.
come up to our front lawn and insist.
Yeah.
And so what can you say? Okay, go ahead. I would know that.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will send you a copy of it.
I was just gonna get that one. Or do you want to leave one there?
What's the configuration?
So
Normally we swing that one out as well. Like this.
Also, and that's not a hard chair, so if you want that one.
Oh, you go ahead.
I just grabbed it because it was the first one I.
We, do we have a quorum? Donnie's not coming and Ann's not here.
Anne said she wasn't coming.
Three is a quorum.
No, she emailed and said she was gonna tell one of you, I forget who.
I get it's just a.
How are you? Good. See you.
I mean, that is a cool.
That would be interesting.
Yeah.
All the decisions will have to be.
Same.
By the way, did you have some, other business?
So,
Well, I'll let you report that.
yeah, I have reports.
So they took it away and, just not today. Finishing up things, but.
And in her email, she said she was gonna tell Kari, maybe Kari.
Maybe he does.
Yeah, because her kids have practice and AP and lots of things. And she said,
Yeah, I understand. It just means there's only three of us here tonight then, so that's too bad.
I didn't hear them sign and touchy, but Barbara would. Barbara, take care of it. I'm not doing it right now, but.
Cool, yeah. Yeah. What's wrong with it for now? Okay.
So you're dog all on the road?
I only have Texas Drive and Agnes, and then I've done all the dirt. I haven't.
No, well, I mean, yeah. You're familiar with it.
I hear you, man.
That's cool.
So.
Kari? Kari, can you handle taking minutes till Rose gets here? Would you mind? Thanks.
No, I'm during the pandemic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I figure I see them all on paper, all the addresses. And I really love to know what I'm writing about.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
All right, folks, let's, Gordon sits down, let's come to order.
I'm gonna have you all come sign in at some point, you know, all right. I already put your name down.
Oh.
You're on. Just because I was talking to you and it's right.
Thanks. Oh,
I think he's, yeah.
Hi, everybody. Sorry, we just got done with another meeting, so excuse us while we catch our breath a little bit here. But let's call this meeting to order. Do we have any additions or changes to the agenda? I have one. I am going to resign as chair, effective as soon as we get new officers, which could be at the beginning or the end of next meeting. So maybe we can kind of figure that out, but sometime at the next meeting, we'll elect new officers. Right? Minutes of April 22nd, there's only 3 of us here, so everything's gonna have to be unanimous. Would somebody like to move minutes as, Rose wrote them?
I don't think it has to be unanimous, it has to be 2-1 at least.
Right.
Oh,
You
it's
need
good.
a quorum to have a, to have.
Oh, okay, so
Yeah.
it's of those present and voting, okay.
So moved. Second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye,
Aye.
okay.
Aye.
Board orders, we need to sign board orders and we'll all need to sign those. Would somebody like to move them?
So moved.
Jordan moves.
Second.
Jamie seconds, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, Kari, you have those to send around. The financial policies that we adopted, we actually did vote on those, so
Yeah.
all we need to do is sign them. So
Yeah.
maybe you could keep a list of things.
They're coming your way.
And at the, well, just to make sure we sign them all, be sure you keep track of that. Okay. So we need to sign those. The property valuation review form, we did this last year, you'll recall, they asked for an extension of 30 days because they need some more time to finish the grand list. So would somebody like to move approving authorization of the chair to sign the form request for an extension for 30 days?
So moved.
Jamie moved,
Second.
Jordan seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. The ESRI contract, we talked about that at the last meeting. Sarah has recommended that we continue, that we continue with them for another year while we think about whether or not to move to the CAI map. So we have to vote on that. Okay, would somebody like to move that we renew and sign that contract, the ESRI contract?
Do we all need to sign it, or can we just
No.
authorize somebody to?
Just, yeah.
Almost an authorization.
I have it. No, it's just authorized representative. So just authorize somebody to do it.
I would make a motion to authorize Kari to sign, the contract.
Good.
Second.
Jamie second, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Appoint Bill Davis and Toby Talbot to the Design Advisory Board. And Bill's over here. Do you want to say anything about why you'd like to be on the board, Bill?
I was conscripted. Oh, I just think it's interesting.
You're interested in historic,
Grew up in an old house, live in an old house, worked at Memorial Hall and the sawmill, so.
all right, cool, thank you. And Toby, we all know Toby. So would somebody like to move appointing Bill Davis and Toby Talbot to the DAB for 4-year terms expiring in 2028?
Yes. So moved.
Jamie has moved.
Second.
Jordan second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
This one, the financial plan.
Right. The one above.
oh, yes, thank you. Do you want to say anything about that, Connie?
It's an annual requirement. The Agency of Transportation wants to see what the town approved for a highway plan, financial plan. So it's nothing more than a restating of the budget that was approved in town meeting.
Okay, and you need to authorize, oh, looks like we all need to sign this one.
Yeah.
So would somebody move authorizing us to sign this?
I move that we sign the annual financial plan for
Okay.
town highways.
Jamie's moved. Jordan's going to second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Woodbury Volunteer Fire, contract looks the same as last year. The numbers match the ones we put in the budget, except that you put in 27 more cents for general operating expenses, but that's okay.
Did I really?
Okay.
I just copied and pasted it off the article, so, or I thought I did.
Okay, it's fine. Other than that, it looks the same, and then there's the schedule for when we're gonna make the payments. Somebody like to move authorizing me, it looks like, to sign this.
I move that we approve the contract and authorize Ann Winchester to sign it.
Jordan, please
Second.
second. All in favor? Aye. Thank you. Okay, Memorial Day, our next meeting is scheduled for Memorial Day. I would like to defer that discussion until we've had a chance to talk for Jamie to make her report about the Curtis Pond Dam, because that's the big thing we need to do. So let's talk a little later
Okay.
about whether or not we want to reschedule that meeting, and if so, for when.
Okay.
I need a little help with the next two, Kari. Reconsider August 12th meeting in consideration of the statewide primaries. Is the idea we would cancel it because the staff will be really busy?
We will need to set up this room for a variety of things. We'll need to have equipment in here. We'll need to have signage. Barbara and I will probably be in here around the time you would normally be meeting. So we were asking if there was a time or place you could meet.
Well, for now, we could just cancel it, and then if it turns out we need to have another meeting, we'll figure it out at the time. How about that? Is that all right with everybody? Do we need to vote on that?
I don't think. So.
Okay, all right, and then review summer vacation schedule. What's that about?
Well, so what I'd like to do at this point is come up with a plan for the rest of the year of the meeting schedule. And if we should have done this a little while ago, but get a sense of what people's vacations are like this summer, so we don't end up in a situation where like two select board members show up.
So it's the board's vacation schedules you want,
Yeah.
not
yeah.
staff.
Well, and staff and how that interacts. I've got a couple different weeks in the summer. So what I will do is follow up with an email to the board about what do you know, what your plans are. And then Barbara and I will draft a calendar for the rest of the year, and we can look at that next time.
Okay, thank you. All right, thanks for bearing with us through all that. Does anybody from the public wish to say anything that will not be on the agenda tonight? Speak up to any topic that will not be on the agenda tonight. Okay. CV fiber update. David, you made us this nice little PowerPoint.
I'm only gonna talk. I've actually made some additions to it.
Okay,
My name is David Healy, the former delegate to CV5 from the town of Callis. I'm with Jared Thomas, the new delegate to CV5 starting this month, right? Meeting tomorrow night. Anyway, basically I want to say thank you for the town's contribution and support for this project over the last 6 years. But as of now, 71 miles of fiber have been constructed in Callis. That's not everywhere, but it's 660 locations, out of I think 900. Now have served access to service. The construction, total cost of construction, which I did today, which is not in the PowerPoint thing, we spent about $4 million in Callis
wow.
constructing this. So it's probably the largest capital project in town to date. And it came out to, if you divide the math, about $6,000 per address. So that's how much service costs. That's why it was never done. I know. And we did 240 miles in the district and 5 of the 20 towns. So we still have a ways to go, but we're making progress. And as of now, we have 175 people signed up for service in Callis. Or have serviced, 100 more are waiting for service. And they'll be installed over the next couple of months. And this represents a phenomenal 45% take rate that, available to what's doing. And when we did our financial model, we didn't think we'd have 40% for 2 years, 3 years. And that's a critical piece of having enough money to continue the operations over time. So Callis gets a big plus sign for doing such a great job. And we need to get more over time. That's sort of the basic of business. It's now a business with staff and, going on. I included a map in the, document, but I should have included, oh, maybe I did. I included a link. Someplace I thought I put a link to the map. It's an online map that shows all the roads that have fiber in Calais right now. The most significant areas without service right now are the East Hill, Max Gray Road, Marshall Road, and let's start on Route 14, which we're waiting for Green Mountain Power to move their lines from the wetland on the west side of Route 14. They're gonna put it underground. We don't know when, but it's gonna be next summer, this summer. So we didn't feel like we should waste our money paying. It was gonna be $400,000 to have them put in new poles that they were never gonna use. So that's the hold up on 14. Most of Route 14 have cable service, so there are some people though who are off of Route 14 who have no service. And the next thing I want to do, you know, the town gave us $200,000. The town's ARPA funds, and I just want to let you know that we appreciated that. And then the state gave us another $200,000. And at $1,500 a piece, which was our agreement with the town of how much we would use out of that fund to make connections. So we spent $262,000 a day. And we were finished connecting the next 100 houses, where we used up to 400,000. We will continue connecting people even without town funds. We just want to make sure that was clear in the town itself. And the current issues and opportunities, utility attachment, I just mentioned in East Calais. The pace of installations is not going anywhere near what, like, it's 15 installations a week, which is to me a little bit slow, but that's what they've been averaging over the last 2 months. And our last construction for this year and for the money we have will take place in Woodbury by the end of May. And so that'll be, right now Woodbury doesn't have service, but when we finish construction, they will have service. And it's probably 6 or 7 houses in Calais around that network. And additional construction is sort of on hold until we get more funds. And there's a couple of opportunities. We are definitely gonna be applying for the infrastructure grant money, which the state has spent the last year and a half, 2 years developing all the materials that the federal government requires for this program. We anticipate getting between $15 and $20 million more. If we win, if we're successful in getting it, but we will be competing with Comcast, CCI, for those funds. So it's going to be a very competitive program. In addition to that, NEK Broadband, which is the 3 counties next to us and north of us, they have applied for a rural development loan at 2% to do a bunch of 500 houses in their district and 500 houses in our district. So they should hear in the next couple of weeks whether they get that or not. If that happens, and the loan can be approved short term, there would be construction this year. And that's pretty much, I think most of those houses are basically on their border, so it's Marshfield, Cabot, and Orange, I guess. So it's going on that side of the world. And as soon as we finish that, when we have enough customers, we'll be able to go to the municipal bond bank to finish all the rest of the construction. And we don't see that for another 2 years at the earliest. And so that's sort of what's going on, which has gone on. I appreciate all the support the town has given us. Jared, do you want to say anything?
Thank you for the opportunity to serve.
I didn't know if there any questions.
Out of curiosity, are there any metrics on, people who have, come online after, there was the early sign up, and kind of the initial uptake, but once the infrastructure has been in place, what's the uptake rate been, on filling, once the infrastructure is in place? Is there any?
It's definitely slowed, really slowed. I think when I looked at the data for this month, I think four additional people this month. So it's really, getting to the rest of the folks who are, can do it and afford. I mean, one of the issues is affordability. And we're spending a bunch of time in the next year with the state trying to come up with an affordability program. When the FCC's ACP program ended in April, we had 6 people who had signed up. We're continuing that until the end of this fiscal year with our own funds. It was $30 a month. So from $79, that drops it down to $49 a month, for those folks. And ideally, trying to get service to everybody, and then the next program requires the district and the state to come up with a plan to make sure everybody can afford it. So there's a lot of work ahead on that. And then the other part of the future plans is digital equity, and that means not just money, but it means helping people get on the internet. So there'll be a big push on that in the next 2 years. Good question.
No, great, just curious, thank you.
Hey, as a citizen?
Yes.
I just want to say that it has totally changed my professional life to actually to know that the connection is reliable and fast. And if you ever need someone to speak about how Comcast is Comcast or Consolidated Communications are a pain in the ass, I am very willing to. You really, yeah. So anyway, thank you guys so much. Really, it has made a huge
So when we hired Waitsfield Champlain Telecom to be our operator, I spent more than a half a day with their customer service people. And it really made.
That was probably just, because half a day with like Consolidated Communications is really kind of like what you need to do just to get it.
So this is when I was interviewed.
Yeah.
And I was pretty impressed, and they send us monthly statistics, they answer phone calls within 10 seconds, more than 99%. And I've been pretty impressed so far. I mean, it's a big haul. I mean, they're a small company, they're not giant telecom. So far, so.
So when are you projecting finishing the parts that aren't done yet?
I would say 2 to 3 years.
2 to 3 years. Huh, and being chair of the select board doesn't help.
That's true,
Yeah, it probably has a negative adverse impact.
I wouldn't, I don't want to ever say when it's gonna happen. I mean, given our experience, I have to say the people at Cal's are pretty patient with me. I say, oh, who is it, Scott? Oh, yeah, it'll be here in another 2 months. It was a year later, so, yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thanks. Good work, you guys. Keep it up. Okay. Tobin, you're gonna tell us what's going on with the Historic Preservation Committee.
Yeah, so what is useful to you? Are you more interested in being in a introduction of what our work is in general, or what we're engaged in specifically right now?
Well, a little of both, I think. An
Okay.
overview and then what projects you're working on, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm Tobin Anderson. I'm the current chair of the Historic Preservation Commission. It's a commission that really exists because there is a load of money that kind of slides in from the federal and state governments that every town in Vermont is eligible for if you become what's called a certified local government. And it is for the renovation of historic properties within a town. And we are eligible for all sorts of grants as a result of being part of this program. So the commission was founded literally to take advantage of those grants. And what they've done over the last 20 some years, I wish David Sheets was here because he was one of the founders, but, they've done, I mean, this building, for example, a lot of money, came through us for this. We've designated each of the town's sort of hamlets as a historic district, and we then work with the National Park Service to get those designations made official, that kind of thing. It should be said, in case any citizens tremble in fear, that it is not an architecturally restrictive district. The only district like that, as you will know is the Kent's Corner district right there on the hill. That's the only one where there is a kind of review by a body of any architectural change of a house that happens for years. Thank God. So anyway. Yeah, so that's kind of the general purpose. We work closely with the Division of Historic Preservation, which is beneath several spanakopita layers beneath the Vermont Department of Housing and Community Development. So that's sort of the structure that the Division of Historic Preservation also, it has a strong lateral connection with the Park Service, the National Park Service. So you can kind of see the sort of area we are in is about sort of like community development through the preservation of the historic properties within a town and the promotion of those. So given that we have received grants serially over the last 10, 15 years to kind of review each of the hamlets of the town and produce a document that talks about the specific history of those places. And of every property, even the privately held properties within those districts. So that's what we've been engaged in. We have kind of rather methodically covered the whole town by doing that. So what we decided was to kind of crown that as a much more visible public gesture. We are going to create like a driving tour. So the idea is that you essentially get what is functionally a series of very brief podcast episodes, as it were, that are keyed to a map. And then we have to do it this way because, of course, we don't have generally a signal in the town of Calais, so you can't just, download it as you go. You need to download it ahead of time. But nonetheless, you will drive from place to place in the town, and then this tour will essentially give you both a chronological view and then also a view of sort of like, like across time in each of these places, what has gone on there, and that kind of thing. So we are involved with doing that right now. That's our kind of push for this year. And our hope is to eventually also create a version tailored for the schools, because in the, third grade or fourth grade?
Third grade.
Third grade, they do a local history unit. So our hope is to have a version of it that they can actually use that has a little bit less about like mullions and things
Will they be narrating it? Is that,
With that?
will they be narrating
the kids?
yeah, the stops?
That's a great idea. Yeah. So anyway, yeah, so, the tour is, we have a script done and we are running it past people in the town. And the idea, just for you, so you know how the grants work, what essentially happens is that we as professionals or semi-professionals state the amount of work we are doing. It is matched then by this state grant that is via a government grant. For stuff like we're going to have to hire someone to do the recording for us, someone to help us put it all online, that kind of thing. So it's a modest grant, but we hope it will actually be really interesting to the people of the town, because it will give us sort of like a story of the town narrated from the sort of pre-settlement period, sort of pre-white settlement period to the 20th century. There you go. So that's sort of what we're engaged in. Do you have anything to say?
The grant program. is called the Certified Local Government Program. So Calais is one of the few rural Vermont towns that is in this program, because it actually is a grant program that was created mostly to sustain big downtowns and other major village centers. Calais is about as rural as they get, but it was Chris Cochran 20 years ago who got us into this, because he knew that the Certified Local Government Program would be the way to sustain any advancement of historic preservation that we could come up with. And their bottom line is to first document your town. So we have done that now with all 5 of the village centers now either on the National Register of Historic Places or pending. Right now, Maple Corner and Adamant are both still pending. Adamant is in DC pending. Maple Corner has yet to be sent to DC. But those are happening now, and we will soon have everybody on the National Register.
So the others are East Calais, North Calais, and Kent's.
And Kent's Corner. Kent's Corner is one of the state's oldest historic districts. Way back in the early 70s, Kent's Corner was put on the National Register. And that was our first project, was to revisit that, at that time, smaller district. And we enlarged it with the very first project that we did. And that is the district too, that I might add, that confuses citizens in Calais about what being on the National Register is all about. It is not a regulatory mechanism. It is only that Kent's Corner has what Calais did to it at a later time, which was to put a design overlay district on top of the National Register district in Kent's Corner. And I think other parts of town have been confused by that. We've repeatedly come up with this every time we've added another village to the National Register. But it's actually a great tool to document the town. And now that that's done, essentially we can move on to projects like the history tour that are more about promoting historic preservation, having fun with historic preservation, teaching with it, and also bringing tourism into Calais, which very much is the case with Art at the Kent and East Calais General Store. These are all examples of bringing business to town as well and using historic preservation as a tool.
And keep in mind that we are looking for future projects. So for example, Jamie, the dam was one thing that we discussed. Were we able to be useful? And unfortunately, the problem is the money for the archaeologists that would have fit our bill had already been spent by the time that someone approached us and asked us, could we pay for it? So so just keep us in mind for that kind of project. We're able to do certain things with this money, but not others. So that is to say, we can't do construction, but we can do planning of construction. For example, we can do like archaeological verification of sites and that kind of thing.
And beyond the grant projects, we're a place to come with dilemmas such as Adamant. Adamant is a conversation that we are helping to facilitate right now as to what the residents of Adamant can do to ensure that the vulnerability that many of them feel about the music school and whether its properties are going to remain viable as music school properties, or are they all going to end up possibly on the market? If that's the case, they want their community to be in the driver's seat about a situation like that.
Well-
So the Preservation Trust of Vermont has come in at our request, and the Adamant Music School is actually a participant in this conversation. I think they're on solid ground, frankly, but they are transitioning to a whole new situation. And the Preservation Trust of Vermont and the Housing and Conservation Board with Gus are part of the conversation as well, helping to figure things out. They may set up a community trust similar to what East Callis did for the general store. They may do the same in Adamant to try to grip the situation there a little more overtly and try to make sure the community has a say in how things develop.
Jordan, you got a question?
Yeah, I'm just kind of curious. It doesn't sound like, so far, obviously the grants have come with any obligation or prerequisite to like establish a new design corridor, but is that or no overlay district? Is that something that typically gets put on those grants, or is that just completely separate and independent for this particular?
It's completely separate. In fact, there is really no ulterior motive in terms of the state. It's communities empowering themselves and using historic preservation as that tool. So I wasn't in Callis at the time that the design overlay district at Kent's Corner was created. I'm a little fuzzy as to how that actually happened, but one of the reasons it was the oldest National Register district in Vermont was the Kent, and the Old West Church and the Sawmill. Those three incredibly important landmarks were recognized clearly decades ago as things that needed to be protected. There being not a lot of that you could do about that, frankly. As I said, the National Register is not anything other than an awareness building mechanism, essentially, and documentation is the other purpose.
Jamie has a question.
Just back to the dam, I'd love to chat with one or both of you. I'm curious about timelines on those, because we do have two more that I can think of specific expenditures related to the project that have to do with historic preservation, potentially three. Some of which, okay,
Yeah,
we
sorry.
can talk.
We had discussed, for example, the placards.
Yeah,
And also the modeling of the dam to resemble
yeah,
stonework.
yeah.
So those are the two things that we are aware of and are been talking about with the dam.
And we'll be
Yeah.
putting in another CLG application at the end of this calendar year. So after the construction season,
Right.
is the perfect time to put in a grant application for those other accessories.
Which can be
which
delayed till
could
next
be-
year.
Right, this could be our project next year, yeah.
So what's your role vis-a-vis this building, and how do you interface with the
We
Friends of
got-
Callis?
I believe we got 3 CLG grants for this building at the request of the select board. So we were, I believe we had done North Callis on the National Register. So we took 3 years off, essentially from doing National Register districts to set up this project. And so it was really the groundwork before any of the work could take place. And they all had different purposes. $10,000 does not go very far in a major building project, but it can definitely bring in the expertise at the beginning to ensure that the project has everything going for it that it could. And I think what happened to this building is fantastic. It's been moved out of the floodplain. It's, this first floor is, pretty amazing compared to what all of us remember. And and we still have work to do upstairs, but I think even that is manageable with other grants that we're looking toward. And when I say we, in that case, both Tobin and I are on the board of the Friends of Town Hall, which grew out of the effort as well.
And of course, you're aware there's concerns about the acoustics, so as we get older, people are having trouble
Yeah,
in here.
absolutely, yeah.
That's gonna be very expensive. We really want to tackle that one.
We totally agree, and there's an opportunity with the ceiling, I think, in particular, to not to insulate. And because one of the sources for funds that we're going after is the energy conservation, to make it energy efficient up there. At the same time, we can put in a new ceiling that would do a lot to improve the acoustic situation. At the very same time.
Are you are you full now, or do you still have openings?
We have openings if people want it, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
how many members do you have right now?
We have 6, and ideally we would have 7. Barbara was concerned about some statutory language, which we clarified. But yeah, so we have flexibility. We would like to aim for 7. In particular, our goal is based on, we want people from each region of the town who have a buy-in for that region, thinking about projects that are happening all over the place. You know, like, for example, we were involved in the East Calais General Store renovation and that kind of thing. We want to make sure that those projects come up, that there's not a kind of local partisanship based on where all of us actually live.
It's mostly to satisfy the guidelines. They're not requirements. The guidelines of the certified local government program, which also suggests that a certain percentage of your members be so-called professionals in the historic preservation field. So currently I meet that standard. Susanna Blatchley, who actually has a master's degree in historic preservation, meets that standard. And even Ryan Edwards, I believe, as an architect who's worked a lot on historic projects, meets that standard. So we currently have 3 professionals. And that means that our match is easier to get to, because the hourlies for our volunteer involvement are greater than the hourlies for the other members.
Do you need anything from us? Sounds like you're doing great.
What about you? Yes.
It sounds like you're.
Well, seriously though, do you think, you know, this year and in the future, if there are things that you think could come within our purview, just let us know in good time so we can talk about, you know, I mean, we don't have the work of the commission for years has been this kind of cataloging of all of the historic properties in town. That is now basically done. So we're going to be on the hunt for new projects. So that's why the only thing I have to ask is, how can we help?
Okay, wow.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for all the work.
Yeah, thank you.
We're pleased with where things are at in town in general. I think when you look at the landmarks in town, like Memorial Hall, all of these things, in just the last few years, it's amazing how good all the major landmarks are, with their own organizations and their own ways of doing these things. We're gonna start a new conversation with Historic Kent's Corner, which is a private nonprofit called Historic Kent's Corner, Inc. It's art at the Kent, but it's also supposed to serve as more of an umbrella for the Kent's Corner landmarks such as the Sawmill
Mhm.
and Old West. So we're gonna resume a conversation among those other landmarks. They're having difficulty getting trustees for both. We are a little more robust right now, so we're gonna talk among the three sites and try to get some more synchronicity going on to help with that. So that'll be coming up in the next year as we get ready for the next show at the Kent.
I don't suppose our town office counts as an historic. Yeah.
Nice try.
It does not, but
How about
it
the
is,
town garage?
but it's a lovely example of a building that was built with a nod to history. It looks a little like a one-room schoolhouse,
It
and
does.
I think John did that on purpose,
Yeah,
so.
it feels a little like a one place. We're outgrowing it, and it's just one of the
Yeah,
things we.
no,
have to
I've
think
heard
about.
this, yes.
All
Indeed.
right, okay, well, thank you very much.
Thank
That
you.
was,
Thank you.
good talk. Okay, let's see, Kari, can you take us through the next one? Potential violation of the dog order.
Sure, I'm gonna start it with Jamie.
Do we expect anyone to, just because we're 10 minutes early, are we
Oh,
expecting?
I'm not expecting anyone, I
Okay.
know that Buffy's not planning,
Okay.
there's a possibility that she can sit down on it. I don't know about anybody else.
Right.
If it's okay to start.
Yeah, I think so,
Okay.
yeah.
So there was an incident, this is back in April at this point. It was, a possible violation of a protective order that the select board issued a year ago. And so, and you were on vacation. So Jamie and Jordan and I and Buffy had just started. So I put our heads together on it. Jamie and Buffy did the initial investigation. And then we went on, basically on two tracks. One was to consider, was there a violation of the ordinance, the dog ordinance in town? And as we went down that road, Buffy realized that she needed to do some training. She needed to be certified by the judiciary to be able to actually write citations if we we're going to go that course. And she ended up last Friday getting about 2 hours of training from a staff member at the Vermont League of Cities and Towns. And the other track was because the board had issued a protective order, some consideration of what to do about if there was a violation of that protective order. So I spoke with Buffy this morning. She would recommend, or she doesn't think that she should follow through on issuing a citation. She feels that it's been nearly a year since that dog has been loose, that she's not aware of any other issues in that time. She felt that the owner was pretty much immediately responsive and that they are owning it at this point and wanting to prevent something like that from happening again. And the ordinance process is very bureaucratic. And, as a first violation, could not be anything more than a $50 fine. It would have the benefit of documenting it in an additional way, but I think in part because she feels like she's getting good response from the owner. She thinks that the select board, her recommendation was to ask the owner to propose what they think is the remedy here, what will keep the dog and the public safe. And she thinks that you probably get good results from that because the owner's inclined to do what they can to.
Just as background, is Buffy authorized now to issue citations?
Yes,
She
she
has
is.
the book and she's all set on that.
She's authorized and she's been trained and she has the citation book,
Okay.
so she can do it.
All right. But she's recommending what, that we invite Elsa to come and talk to us?
Yeah, I don't know that it even needs to be in the meeting setting. It could be, perhaps a phone call or an email or.
Oh, I
one-
see,
one
just
person
communicating
visiting.
through Buffy or, yeah.
And, yeah, and maybe even Bucky will do that. I think they've developed something of a relationship, but somehow get a response from the owner and see what you think about that response. That make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. What about you guys?
Yes, I think it does. I'm just thinking through the coming up on a year. If there's a third such incident, say a month from now, would not issuing a citation now mean that we could not consider previous incidents if there were a future incident?
So the year statute of limitations, so to speak, is on the ordinance, right? Is that where that lives?
Right.
Yes.
Yes.
And
It's a first offense and it has to be done within a 12-month period. So we're actually still in that period in terms of for another couple of days.
Right.
Although you say that's a different process because that was our process and not the citation process.
yeah, that's my understanding.
So it doesn't
That
count.
your protective order, I don't think it refers to a year. I think it says this shouldn't happen again, or where it says a dog shouldn't escape, a dog shouldn't be out without restraint, right? Without is it a muzzle or a head restraint on leash? And so I don't think, with regards to that protective order, that the year makes a difference. And I don't believe that there was actually, I think the protective order refers to the ordinance, a violation of the ordinance, but it's not the same thing as issuing a citation. That never happened last year. We never formally wrote down
We didn't.
the animal control officer at the time did not issue a citation
But we issued a fine.
as part of the
Which is
protective
different.
order,
Okay.
referring to, and the $50 fine just happens to be the same amount as a first violation of the ordinance.
It doesn't-
Well, but it
Happen to
doesn't
be.
just happen. That was in the intent of the fine, I believe.
Yeah,
Bottom line, I don't think that the year time limit applies to your
Okay.
protective.
it was our understanding at the time we wrote this that it would,
Okay,
but you may be correct. It may be that we just didn't understand the process.
Just, Barb has her hand up, I don't know if she can speak to this further.
Okay, Barbara?
Thank you. When I reread the protective order, there was no time limit on the dogs having to be confined within the fencing. It wasn't that it couldn't be violated within the next year or 12 months. It was my understanding, the way I read it, it was for the life of the dog.
Well, what we wrote was within 10 days of receiving this order, Elsa shall pay $50 for a first offense in a 12-month period. So clearly we were thinking we were fulfilling section 7 of our dog ordinance.
Right.
That was our intent at the time.
But wasn't the requirement of the fencing and the no pull collar and so forth beyond a year, wasn't it?
Oh,
Forever?
yes, absolutely, yes.
Okay, but isn't that what we're talking about the dog being loose? It's,
No, I
is
think-
it,
I think we're
it's a
talking
forever?
I believe we're talking about whether this is a second citation in the year or not.
Of the ordinance.
Yes, of the ordinance. And, but it becomes a moot point if we go with Buffy's recommendation anyway. We're not going to issue a citation if we follow that recommendation. We're going to ask Buffy to work with her. By then, the year will be up anyway, since it was May 18th of last year. Oh, Kate, yeah.
I just recommend that you make very public whatever outcome does come of this. The person who accused the dog last year came into the town office today and wanted to know if it was the same dog, or the same dog and the same dog owner, and just seemed very wary and wanted to make sure no one else had been hurt. So I do want to make sure that whatever happens, we do share with the public what is, so
Okay.
Yeah,
that they can feel comfortable knowing steps were taken.
right. A few people approached me as well and with the same thought of making sure this was not taken lightly and that, yeah.
Okay, well, the recommendation has been made that we ask Elsa perhaps to talk to Buffy and to make a plan with Buffy perhaps for making sure that this doesn't happen again.
A proposed plan and then bring that back to the select board. for
Yeah.
approval. So, that makes sense. And let me just give you, I left out the flavor of that. So a couple of things that Elsa has proposed or thought about openly with Buffy is to get training for the dog. Another one would be to get an electric fence, electronic fence.
Yeah.
Those are a couple of examples.
Mhm.
The point being that your protective order speaks to raising the height of the fence, and Buffy doesn't think that's the issue here, that that's not gonna help. It was a human error that did not.
So I will temper my commentary on, from the perspective of, you know, I don't personally feel like terribly motivated to make a big deal about this. And I do want to cooperate and develop a kind of a cooperative relationship with the owner. But I also want to respect and be sensitive to people's concerns relative to the incident and, you know, without kind of getting into too many of the broader details of the previous incident. One of the things that was brought up and mentioned by the public during that time was that, you know, there had been many other instances of the owner's animals getting loose and citations not being written, and the opportunity for documenting repeat or second offenses having been an opportunity missed, or at least those weren't officially on the record, so it got very kind of circumstantial. And you know, given the severity, I guess, of the previous incident, you know, without kind of, I guess, speaking for other members of the board, you know, I feel like issuing a citation for a second offense of the ordinance is just kind of a minimum recognition of a continued issue, and making sure that that's like on the record. And it doesn't come with other repercussions, or actions necessarily. And doesn't preclude us from continuing to have a dialogue with the owner. I do think, you know, there had been some guidance that the most recent incident with the dog being loose and then being, you know, brought back into the yard in fairly short order. You know, there's some ground to potentially say that was not a violation of the protective order, but that we could open up the protective order for an amendment to kind of work with the owner. You know, what I was uncomfortable with looking at the situation and then revisiting the protective order, it really, you know, forced the select board into a position where it had to say, okay, well, if it's a violation, then the only option that we've given ourselves is to mandate that work be done on the fence, which may not be relevant at all. And I think there is a opportunity here to amend that, to kind of imagine other work that the owner could do, to kind of help improve the situation relative to insights from the last.
So you're suggesting we actually establish an amendment to this protective order?
I'm saying we bring that back up on a later agenda. I'm at this point, I'm also not really clear, whether or not that needs to be a hearing or if that can just be, a scheduled, agenda item. I don't think it necessarily has to be a hearing unless we find that there was a violation. So I think we could probably just make it a regular agenda item, where we work with the owner to make.
You mean ask Buffy to work with the
Mhm.
owner to come up with proposed amendments
Yeah.
to the protective order?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
But I would say for today, my current position is that we make a decision to give Buffy the direction to respectfully taking in her, considering her recommendation, but to issue a second offense citation.
Issue a second offense and waive the penalty. The penalty for a second one is $75.
That's up for conversation for sure. It's more important to me that I think we recognize and document that there was
Yeah.
a second offense. I feel less strongly for sure about
Mhm.
a monetary.
I feel pretty strongly that we shouldn't.
Okay.
Yeah, James, do you have an idea?
I don't have an idea, I just have a comment, well, personal opinion, I don't always think that a monetary fine is the greatest thing in the world for the different types of citations and ticket kind of things. If there is something in the town, statutes or laws that state that there will be a monetary value associated with a citation, and it's in this particular protection order, that second offense would be $75. I think the monetary value should stay with it, just so it's consistent for everybody who may receive a citation in the future or has in the past, and they can rebuttal it and say, okay, well, I received a second offense and had to pay this amount of money, but this person doesn't. It's just a consistency based thing is all I, this.
I think it's pretty important that we figure out a way to keep working with Elsa.
No, I completely agree with everything you guys have said, and working with the owner of the animal is definitely the right thing.
And the purpose of issuing the citation is just to keep it on the books because we lose it in a few days if we don't issue it right away. Tegan.
Could the $75 be put toward the training or the collar? All of these cost money, and I'm sure they'll cost me 75.
Yeah, that's that's why I'm kind of pretty warm to the idea of waiving the citation. I think I don't have the ordinance in front of me, but I think it does envision making other requests or requirements or considerations maybe. Maybe
It
not.
doesn't specifically say that I recall, but I don't see why we can't. Anyway, I think we can waive it. But we could, I like Tegan's idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that.
Yeah, I think that would probably have to come in the form of, an amendment to the protective order. So I don't know that we'd be able to.
Why?
put
Why
that in
can't it just
citation.
be a citation saying, second offense?
In lieu of issuing.
In lieu of a penalty. Well, actually, what I would like to do first is find out what Elsa would suggest to fix the violation. I wouldn't want to issue the citation right now. But maybe we have to. It's the 18th.
I mean, I think we have to.
We do, we have
be on the
5
record-
days.
On the record of making a decision to issue
Yeah.
it,
Yeah.
and then Buffy will need to do it. I think it's gonna be kind of tricky territory to put language in there. Requiring a particular action in lieu of it, so I think we'll just probably have to make a decision to not include a citation, and this dialogue is gonna be on the record. And
Wait, sorry, I thought you wanted to do the citation. You mean not
do the
include
citation,
penalty.
not include the penalty.
And we could say we waive the penalty in view of the fact that it's going to cost
in view of the fact that the owner has represented a strong interest to take other actions that will likely
Will-
carry, financial.
Yeah.
Burden or costs. Significant.
I just looked in the ordinance and it's, the second offense says 75 full penalty, 50 waiver penalty.
I don't know what
I
that
don't
means.
know what that means.
You have been charged a penalty, but believe you have reasonable cause for not complying with the law, you may request a waiver of penalty. I think that's that's what I'm trying to figure out right now.
Does that mean we can waive $50 or does that mean, I don't know what that means.
I don't know.
Okay, I think we have a path though. As I understand it, we will ask Buffy to issue a citation, but we will waive the penalty in view of the fact that Elsa has been cooperating and is going to come to us with a plan to ensure that it doesn't happen again, and this is likely to cost at least the amount of the penalty and probably more. Does that make sense to do it that way?
I think so.
Yeah, so
Okay, so Kari, can you communicate that to Buffy?
Mhm.
Do we need a motion to do that or a
might
vote?
as well.
No. I
It's
don't
not,
feel
it's not
strong.
really an action, but to be safe. you do.
Yeah.
It's a direction to
Directive.
Buffy.
So I'd make a motion, to issue a directive to the animal control officer to issue a second offense, citation, and waive the financial penalty associated with the second offense. In consideration of the owner's expressed willingness to continue to seek.
No, we're gonna actually ask the owner to come to us with, she doesn't have to come to us, but to work with Buffy, who will bring to us a plan to
Yep.
ensure that this doesn't happen again.
Yep.
Got it.
Okay, thank you.
Second.
Oh, sorry. Sorry. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Phew, are we still? on?
Is it just the 3 select board members?
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure there weren't any up there.
Okay, now we come to the Callis Road and Bridge standards. As you know, Toby has come up with several amendments that will bring us in conformance with state law regarding hydrologically connected segments of the roads. That was a state law that was adopted after the town Callis Road and Bridge standards were adopted. And we never did change our standards to come into conformance with that. At the last meeting, we asked Kari and Toby to work to come up with a draft, which they have done, and they have also raised some other issues as they did. I sent around a summary. I meant to bring copies. Did we bring copies for folks to see this? Sorry about that. There's 4 items that are necessary to come into compliance with the standards. And then there are another 4 items that Kari and Toby identified that they'd like us to talk about. Kari, you're gonna, you asked me to, you were gonna talk about the process you went through.
Yeah,
You talked with.
so I wanted to talk about what the other elements were. So, as Ann said, we looked at the state requirements for these hydrologically connected segments. And just so you know, the definition of that is within 100 feet of a water resource. And looking at the map, that's about half the road segments in town. So actually, one of the things that's in the draft is a phrase about, is a phrase about applying those standards to non-connected segments where that makes sense to. Because we don't wanna, it's just a practical matter. Sometimes the road is alternating between connected and not connected in any given segment. So That's one thing. There's also language in here, acknowledging the state's, requirements for changing speed limits. Because as you well know, there's a process for that. That's not in our standards, so it might as well be. Then as we started to dig into it, one of the things that really concerned me is where are we not in compliance with our own standards? And there's a number of places, and one of the ones that's most obvious is road widths. And so there's 3 types of roads identified: the very low travel roads, the maximum width specified as 12 feet. And there are not very many places in town where we have 12-foot roads. And so the proposal is to bump that up to 14 feet. That the basis for that is that that's the minimum needed for a car and a truck to pass each other. There's a few other examples like that. And then there's a few other issues that it just seemed like it might be worth a discussion. There's policy issues that I've either heard people mention or just, so that's interesting. I didn't realize we were requiring that. So one of that would be, shouldn't we consider financials in evaluating different roads, and then do we need signs at every border of town? That's something that's in here. The sign welcome people to town.
What did you give to these guys? Are you looking at this? Are you with us?
Gave them the draft.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so one of the things the draft says is signs shall be installed well, not the draft, the law says, shall be installed at the entrances to Calais and at strategic points to remind motor vehicle drivers to share the road with agricultural and non-motorized vehicles. We've never done that.
Who's lucky?
Yeah.
Never. So anyway, that was the thinking with what you've got in front of you here.
Well, would you just quickly describe the process? You talked to some of the folks on the.
Right, so then I reached out on the front of the page is the road advisory committee members that were around for the initial draft. Of those folks, I spoke with J.C. Meyer, Stephanie Kaplan, Peter Harvey, and Craig Line. I've spoken to Doug Lilly quite a bit about roads. And so it was, it was very interesting. I got actually a pretty wide range of perspective. Not everyone was in agreement about all parts of it, but I feel more informed about where they were coming from and what their thinking was.
In general, they had no problems with the parts that brought us into conformance with the new law. Is that right? With the new state
In
law?
concept, folks when I spoke with them hadn't seen the draft. I've sent it to them now. And I haven't heard back specifics other than what I read, what Stephanie wrote to you.
Okay.
But in concept, they understood well, and that's what the state requires.
Okay. Bill, did you have a question or?
I'm assuming that the road matter changes, correct?
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Okay. I will now tell you that Stephanie, I think I will summarize. Stephanie sent me an email. She had to go in for minor elective outpatient surgery today, so she couldn't come tonight. But she's very concerned that we not make any of these changes, although she's not concerned about the first 4 on this list. But she would like to have an opportunity to have a conversation about them. And she's actually strongly recommending that we revive the advisory committee and ask them to look at it, which is one option. Another option would be a public hearing if we wanted to get input.
I think she had mentioned, not necessarily, I don't think she quite went as far as to say a full advisory committee, but at least a cohort of individuals to kind of consult on it, but.
Yes, with at least one member, her, and preferably more of the original committee. She's also very strongly opposed to moving the 12 feet to 14 feet. She feels that people can just back up, and it's more important to maintain the beautiful rural character of the road. So I think we'd have a discussion there. So the question is, we do need to do the first 4 at some point. We probably should have a conversation, we do need to have a conversation about the others. Do you guys have any thoughts about how you'd like to proceed to do that?
Yeah, I'm pretty familiar with all the road things. And I do think that it's really important, to try to adopt as much as we can, relative to the Access Board, to bring us into compliance, to make sure that we have that on, because we do have this modified road standard on record, that it includes those elements, as just kind of a basic form of maintaining this and keeping it current, and within compliance of the things that are most important to the state right now. I think there's a lot of other things in the road standard that would be worth a good debate and revisiting. And I would agree with Stephanie. I think it's hard to probably have that conversation, without kind of forming a committee or at least dedicating a series of meetings to having that discussion in a public forum, which is maybe an interesting middle ground to that. One of the things that stood out to me is that, you know, we have the better back roads like guidelines that aren't exactly state design standards, that are pretty close to this. You know, we go beyond that, or get a little bit more explicit. I think in what we try to hold ourselves accountable for, with our modified road standard, with, you know, uses of shalls and busts and that sort of thing. So I think at the very least, it'd be good to go through our modified road standard, with the better back roads. And, you know, one of the things that stood out for me that didn't seem to be included in here was that, it's pretty clear in the better back roads, that, they highly discourage the use of boom and flail mowers for cutting, for any tree cutting, or cutting tree limbs. And that's not really represented in here, and I think would be beneficial. I think there's an interesting conversation or an important conversation to be had around road widths, and then our maintenance of the trees and vegetation that are encroaching on the travel lanes, that go beyond the ditches and into the travel lanes. So, you know, I think if we have a plan and a commitment and a standard for maintaining the vegetation in an acceptable way, you know, maybe we find ourselves some room and not having to necessarily bump up the 12 to a 14 if we say explicitly this is the expectation and we have a commitment to it. The other thing that kind of stood out to me was that in the better back roads guidelines, they mentioned that the road segments should be basically cataloged in like 380 something foot segments, which we've had a lot of conversation with Toby about, and I think we're trying to like really get caught up on making sure that we're documenting which roads are in compliance, which ones aren't in compliance. We have an obligation to do that with the state. We've kind of had this conversation before. I'd like to get a little bit more explicit in our modified road standard, and setting the expectation that where we make exceptions, because, you know, we all know that there are exceptions to certain segments of roads, that we document those, and then we maintain that catalog of road segments where we either can't apply our own standards, or we're making a decision for one reason or another to go beyond them and adopt, design standards that are more explicit from the state. And a big part is going to be the cost and the timeline associated with like bringing roads into compliance where they aren't. And it would be, from my opinion, I think important to say, you know, not only are we documenting where those road inventories are that are out of compliance, but what is our plan and intention for correcting them on a particular timeline? Or when are we gonna revisit it? So I guess.
This is a pretty major project you're proposing here.
No, Kari's already done most of the work. With Toby.
Is that true, Kari?
It depends on how far we want to go.
I mean, you'd have to do this with a committee.
Yeah, I've got my concerns, but the can is open, right? So then what to do, you know?
Right, I was thinking of a little less than Jordan's talking about. I mean, that just sounds overwhelming to me, Jordan, not that it shouldn't be done. It just-
I hear that. I think in my brief tenure of residency in the town, and even before it, this is a thing that has come up over and over again, and has impacted the dynamic between citizens and road crew members and the management of the road crew and I think it's problematic. I mean, I think there's more work to be done in refining it. And
Well, maybe we could break it into chunks. I mean, first we've got to come into conformance with the state law.
right, for sure.
Then there's maybe some simple things we can do that are non-controversial.
I would look at it as a process. I mean, there's no reason that we can't just incrementally have dialogue with the committee about incremental changes to the road standard.
Yeah.
And get those incorporations, you know, if we can find middle ground on where to make changes, and where not to, it would be nice to start incorporating them, like, and getting clear about what our expectations are for maintaining the roads. But I definitely don't think it works to just continue to have this, and then every year having a debate around whether or not we're in compliance, we're not in compliance, how much we're documenting it. You know, the requirements for documentation are just increasing. We're getting close to the point where we have kind of the centralized resources and technology to make that documentation pretty efficient. And I think that's something that has changed a lot in the last couple of years. So, that's.
Yeah, we've got a couple of hands up here. Go ahead, David.
Well, I think, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, the regional commission did a complete stormwater runoff of many of the roads in town. And I'm sure it's all in GIS format. So you may have a lot of the data you need to start with.
Oh, we have identified the hydrologically connected
Yes, but-
segments.
Yeah.
Oh, that's done. Well, that's the map you're looking at, isn't it?
Right, and we are required to inventory those segments, which are about half of the road in town.
Yeah.
But I think they did, the regional commission did a lot of work. Don't want to go waste.
Not reinvent the wheel. Tegan.
Well, just the new mapping system, now that we've decided we are going to go through with it, I'm really excited. There's so much documentation in the land records that will be easier to access if we can put it all in one place. And I think this is just one more piece of that puzzle of really having a good idea of what's happening on various stretches of road and how it relates to the transportation and people who live there and all sorts of things. And I think this can go forward really well with that.
So we just need to find some volunteers.
I'm happy to. Like, I'm excited and we'll be diving in, but it's something to put a lot of the stuff I have on various spreadsheets and paper records and things.
Great, you got yourself appointed staff to this. Okay,
I guess there's no way that I'm not in, given what I just talked about it, so, uh,
Barbara's got her hand up.
do you
Oh,
want to finish with that?
yep, just a reminder that in reference to a couple of things that a couple of times when Jordan made the comment, we'll need to work with the committee. Just a reminder that there have not been any appointments to a roads advisory committee for a long, long time. So I don't think you officially have a committee, but you're welcome to re-energize it. It'll just take a little bit of recruitment and select board appointments.
Right,
I will volunteer you.
wow, okay, I think we just got 2 volunteers.
so,
Thank you.
be on there, so that's 3.
And Stephanie definitely would like to be appointed.
I'm pretty sure Peter Harvey is interested.
Okay,
So to stop short, I guess, of forming one without the rest of the board members here, who, you know, frankly, I know are also going to have opinions on it. I think if everybody else kind of finds it appropriate, I'd say we adopt the changes relative to the Act 64 modifications to get us closer to alignment
And the speed
on those, and the speed limit. I think that was a good change. And then table things that you had mentioned were policy kind of stuff. And
so the first 4 on this list,
Yeah,
we'll adopt, okay.
And I guess I'd recommend, I guess the next step would be to put this back on a future agenda, you know, later this summer, where we can have kind of interested parties participate in an open meeting and then have a more direct conversation about forming a committee.
Yeah, I think it'd be good to come up with kind of a list of things we'd like the committee to do and what how we'd like to see them proceed. You know, there'll be a hierarchy of things. Okay, future agenda, great.
So I think, did I technically make a motion to accept those first 4?
Yeah.
If not, I just did.
But I'll include those 4 things in.
Yeah, in motion,
Yeah,
and I will second the motion.
okay, it's been moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Rose, do you want, I have it listed here. Do you want this?
Yeah, I have it electronically too, but thank you.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay, it's
Yep, the first 4.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was the select board liaison for many years on the Roads Advisory Committee. So this was the first, what do you call it, iteration?
Iteration.
Yeah, iteration when, and then the committee, once the town adopted this, then there were new people that were on the committee. And then it just continued on and on until it petered out.
Yeah. All right, thank you. Kari, financial report.
Great, so, as you know, we've been running light on the revenue side of things all this year, and happy to report that that's largely been rectified. You know, that's not reflected in this report, but in May, we did receive the final tax bill, and it was a very beneficial adjustment, lowering of our tax burden.
The property tax bill from the
And
school.
because of the way that's booked, now that's going to be treated, that difference is going to be treated as revenue, which, you know, Sandra had let me know. It just seems, it's a little odd, but that really helps. On the expense side, you know, we're at the end of April, we're 5/6 of the way through the year, so you'd expect us to be somewhere around 83% of expenses. We're at 91% of our budgeted projection, which still getting used to the timing of things, you know, that doesn't follow evenly throughout the year. We may end up exceeding our projected expense budget. And if we do, it's certainly because of the legal fees and animal control expenses being so far above budget again this year. But the good news is we did receive the $251,000 FEMA reimbursement in May. And we're expecting another $173,000 in the coming weeks, could be 1 to 3 weeks. So that's, you know, obviously significantly improve our cash flow situation.
Yeah, so we're
Breathing a lot easier.
still not looking like they'll have to borrow then.
Right, I don't believe we'll need to borrow any additional. We
Wonderful.
took that $100,000 very low interest cash flow loan, so, yeah, it's very encouraging.
That's fantastic. Thank you. Questions? Yeah,
Oh, thanks, Mary.
yeah. Now we come to Curtis Pond Dam. Jamie, where are we?
We are moving full steam ahead on all fronts except signing a contract with the contractor. I met with Larry on site the other day. We met with Chris Colt on behalf of the Blue Barn owners to map out what part of their property will be used for as a laydown area. The bulk of their yard will be fenced off with high construction fence and will be used to stage giant cement blocks and piles of sand and equipment and all the construction needs, and they're good with that. We've figured out what boundaries worked for everybody. It came out of that meeting that the electric and utility lines that go, there's a pole on Worcester Road and then a pole the far side of the Blue Barns dock. It's a fairly long stretch and the lines are super low. And so Larry said we need to find a way to get the lines higher. So I met this morning with an engineer from Washington Electric. We discovered that probably as a result of the flood, the anchors on one of the poles have come loose and the pole is about 4 feet tipped in the wrong direction. So the first step is going to be to re-anchor those poles. He doesn't think that'll get us where we need to be. And so we'll probably have to, they're both 40-foot poles and we'll probably have to have one or both of those poles switched out for a 50 or 55-foot pole. It's yet to be determined whose dime that work would be on. But it's the current poles are not up to standard, so it would likely be something that WEC would just do. There will be a lot of coordination with the other utilities to get all the lines swapped to the new pole.
So it has to be a permanent change to raise them, not just during construction?
Well, it's only necessary during construction, and there's a possibility of putting in a temporary pole. But they really are really lower than they should be. And in terms of long-term dam maintenance, like it was a pretty, one of the scary aspects of the flood, one of the many, the placement of the pump that we rented. They had to, use not a crane, but a boom lift to swing it out and had to go under those lines, and it was very close. So for long-term safety and maintenance of the dam, it would be wise to raise them anyway. And the WEC engineer said that they fully supported higher lines there for the safety of everybody and their equipment.
And they're aware of our timeline, so.
Yes, they're aware of the timeline. I got some more specifics from Larry after I met with WEC and sent those on to WEC, so that's all in the works. Likely to be completed in very early June. Current timeline is to start staging equipment. Probably by June 15th.
Don't we have to sign a contract first?
We do, that's coming. But I met with, we also have to, have a certified botanist help oversee the transplantation of lesser burr reed, which is a rare, semi-rare grass that grows in the pond. I've been meeting with Darian McElwain, who lives on the pond, is a botanist who's done a lot of aquatic work and has offered her services. I'm in the process of getting her approved from the Agency of Natural Resources to be the approved botanist on the project. We're gonna do a test transplantation next week as we develop our proposal to the state on how we complete that project. I know. Michael and Larry are still talking about rebar angle positioning and finite absurd details of the design. They both assure me that we'll, every week they say we're gonna have it finalized any day now. But Larry doesn't seem worried about it. They cannot meet. Neither Michael nor Larry are available to meet on Memorial Day on the 27th, which is when I sort of proposed to them that, okay, come on, final deadline, schedule be at the meeting, we'll do this. They are saying that they think they'd be ready if we wanted to meet a week from today on the 20th. But it also sounds like it would be fine if it wasn't until June 3rd.
Yes, but would it be fine if we said May 20th? That's, I just assume get it done, but I'm not confident they'll have it.
That's the problem.
Alright.
We want an attorney review, so we'd like to have it tomorrow,
Right, and
to give them a couple days.
my impression is we will not have it tomorrow.
Right.
When I've pushed Larry a little bit and Michael too, and they're both like, it takes the time it takes and we have to, each change they make, they then have to get approved by Ben Green at Dam Safety, and there's all these sort of interwoven.
All right, well, shall we try for June
Pieces.
1st then? Does that make the most sense?
Another idea would be, May 28th, the Tuesday.
Okay.
I don't have
It's hard to do without
Preference.
Donnie and Ann here, but
Right.
Jordan, would that be all right with you?
Emergency management's meeting here at 6:30.
Well, and this is when we were gonna kind of bring up the conversation about rescheduling the Memorial Day select board meetings.
Yeah,
yeah,
that is what
that's-
we talked
yeah.
about.
I thought we were talking about it and then that, sorry.
Yeah.
No, it would be moving that meeting to accommodate this.
And, who?
Oh, yes, Barbara.
So moving it to the 28th is only one more day. If you don't think you're gonna have the contract in time for the 27th and in time for the attorneys to review it, I'm not sure that one more day is gonna make a difference.
No,
No,
it's the 20th, we can't
It's
have
the
it.
20th, we won't have it ready. We think we'll have it ready by the 27th.
Oh,
It's just
gotcha,
that
gotcha. Yeah,
Um,
sorry.
Key players can't meet on the 27th.
How many people, Barbara, could one of us meet upstairs and one downstairs? You're on the emergency management committee.
Yes, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to raise my hand. Yes, you could do that. It may be chilly upstairs. More likely, we would just, oh, wait a minute. No, didn't I email you guys and tell you on the 20th, the 28th? Let me just say emergency management will move. They will
Right.
accommodate you. Don't worry about emergency management. They'll either go all Zoom or we'll go over to the East Callis Rec Center.
Oh, thank you. All right.
Okay.
Shall we try for the 28th then?
My instinct is earlier is better in case there's an issue with the contract.
Yeah, I agree.
Lots riding on that,
Okay.
obviously.
Yeah,
Okay, but we'll have to check with Ann and Donnie.
I can do that.
Yeah,
Earlier than the 28th, you're saying, or really going for the 28th?
going for the 28th
Yeah,
and not pushing it to June.
Yeah, I think that's
Yeah.
fine. I do have a commitment, that is theoretically supposed to end by 6 o'clock, so I might be a little bit late, but,
Barbara and Ann are both on the emergency management. In the emergency management. So they could have.
Ann is, oh,
Right.
Okay, what-
She'll make the select board and Curtis Pond priority, don't you think?
I think so. I just wanted to put that out
okay.
there.
Well, I mean, there is the 29th, but is that too difficult?
That worked for me.
Is that better for you, Jordan, if we went for the 29th?
What's this building look like?
I'm free. I'm free here on the grand.
The 29th, it's open.
yeah, that,
Well, maybe that'd be better, assuming that Larry and, do we have to have both Larry and Michael there?
Ideally, we'll have both of them there, yeah.
And we'll need our attorney too, so,
Unless he reviews it
and says no
ahead of
issues.
time and,
Yeah,
yeah. I mean, the contract is gonna basically be the bid documents that we've already looked at with the numbers changed.
what was your question, Kari?
Dude, I was gonna ask, you wanna check with Larry and Michael first, but I'm just gonna write to Ann.
Yeah, and I'll write to them.
So Wednesday, the 29th at 6 P.M.
Let's aim for that. If we have to change it, we'll figure it out. 6 PM, yeah. It sounds like that's better for Jordan too. Okay. Anything else on Curtis Pond?
Many things, but I don't think anything critical.
For speaking from experience, I feel your pain with contracts and contractors, so I fully understand what you're saying.
Yeah, but it feels like it's all coming together. The finances seem, I went back through all the spreadsheet and numbers and we don't have a huge amount of wiggle room, but we seem to be where we need to be on all fronts.
Right, okay. Rules of procedure. As part of curing what we acknowledge may have been a violation of the open meeting law, we said that we would make an amendment to our rules of procedure to ensure that we didn't do it again. The language is on the agenda, the proposed language. Does anybody need to review it? Do you all understand it?
I do understand it. I'm wondering if, we could table it until the next meeting, and maybe add to it, relative to some feedback that we got today.
Oh, right, that's right, which I don't imagine most of us have had a chance to really look at and
Yeah,
think about.
right.
Okay. That's a good point. Let's table that one. Thank you, Jordan. Good thought. Okay. This meeting on the 28th could get a little longer. I was thinking we would just do the one, well, two things. Elect new officers and do Curtis Pond. Let's see where we are. Tegan, That report for us?
We held an election last week. It went great. We had fairly steady traffic. It slowed down a little in the middle of the day, but our first voter arrived at 6:58 and went well through the afternoon. And then no one from the BCA had volunteered except for Jamie, but they didn't make her come to go to the commingling of ballots at East Montpelier Elementary. So Barbara and I went because we had never been to the commingling of ballots, and I wanted to experience it, and she was a champ and went along with it. So that went well. The school budget passed, so we don't have to hold another election. It's great.
It passed by not much. How did it do just in Calais?
The whole point of commingling is they do not
Oh, they don't.
assess that. That's the whole point, is everyone puts
Right.
their ballots into two tabulators, and at the end you have the number, so it was,
Just 20%,
it
I
was
think, right?
200, it was off by about 200, it was 1,200.
Or 1,000.
Yeah, so it was about 2/3 of the voters we had for the previous election, which I don't know if that's good. I feel like it's probably pretty good considering it was a day that is not an official state holiday kind of thing. And, yeah, I think it was a significant portion of Cal registered voters, so I thought it was good. We've kind of finished the dogs period of the year in the town office. They'll still straggle in, but we've got most of them registered. There's a lot of zoning happening, so John is in there a lot. And the listers are working a lot. It's a busy time in the town office for them. They're still working on their grand list and finalizing things there. They did file for an extension. That was gonna get signed tonight, but that was signed.
It will.
Yeah.
Mhm.
The cemetery commission has been coming in too. They're getting started on that project to put everything together and get burial transit permits matched to plots, matched to this, matched to that. It's going real slow, but they're doing a great job. And so that's exciting, is that they will have a much more cohesive resource for people to go to when they have questions about people who are buried in Calais.
Gosh, we're getting sophisticated.
The new animal control officer has been great. Barbara and I have gotten to talk with her and communicate with her. She's already working on our delinquent dogs list, people who have not registered, and just, she's diving right in. It's been so exciting to have her coming in and working with us. So that's been
Oh,
great.
that's wonderful.
And then I emailed you all the listers, Selectboard may be interested in one or more of our solar signs. So the town clerk over there said she would pass on the information we got from all of you to her Selectboard, and we may be hearing back from them. And Kari invited them to come to the town garage and talk anytime if they were interested.
Was I right? It was those ones that are difficult to move on the back roads? Yeah, that's what I thought.
And they didn't clarify what they wanted them for in the inquiry.
It
so
may be fine for them, yeah.
I think that's it.
Good. And Kari,
I've got 4 items for you. One is, on my task list for this week is to apply for the road grader bond. And the road grader that we're using and have been using. First we have to borrow the money. And I'm almost done. The last step is to calculate the payback term that we're gonna apply for. If you remember the way that the vote was staged, it was up to 15 years. So I just want to take another look at our capital plan and our debt service schedule to figure out, obviously the longer, the smaller the payments will be, but but the more interest we will pay over time. So I'm gonna figure all that out. This next one just came to me today, and I'll introduce it. You tell me if you think it's more appropriate for executive session, but the idea was brought to me. I had an initial discussion with our road crew about the idea of creating an assistant road foreman position, in parentheses, hiring Tyler Stecker into that. The reasons for that would be to help, to hope to retain Tyler for longer, and that would be a combination of more pay and status, I would say. That position could function as a secondary decision maker and just another chain in the chain of command, another link. And also be to acknowledge and formalize the special contributions that Tyler makes, in terms of decisions, and he's the technology person in the garage. He's willing to work on developing the system of data tracking that we talked about. It's an interest of his. There's some other things, but that's sort of the general gist of it. And so I wanted to check with you and see, would you like me to explore that further and come back with a proposal?
I would do you have any concerns about what that might do to the dynamic personnel dynamic, within the road crew?
I don't, because it's such a small crew and they seem to be in support of it.
Barbara's coming
Barbara, yeah.
It's not related to what you're talking about right now.
Oh, okay.
Obviously, this is like the creation of the road foreman position that we did last winter. This is a position that's governed by the labor agreement, so it's a negotiation as to, what what the rate of pay is, but also consideration about what the job duties are, although I think that's gonna be pretty easy.
Will it be an amendment to our?
Yeah, it'd be a side letter agreement, and then presumably that would get folded into the contract next time it's real.
And how much more money are we talking?
Well, our foreman earns 30 and our road crew members earn 25, so somewhere in between. The 28 was thrown out as.
Just because I've got, it's hard enough finding, members or potential prospective employees. So I have like modest concerns about, creating titles and positions and formalizing them in a contract, when it's already hard enough to kind of fill the ranks. But I certainly recognize, desire to kind of formalize and recognize Tyler's contributions, and I do like the idea of having some structure around that, having that kind of legacy planning and transition. It would be good, I think, if you'd be willing to kind of reach out to our attorney and maybe get like their opinion about that.
Okay.
And just some feedback on adding the position and whether it be a recommendation or not a recommendation. I'm just trying to be in the current economic environment a little sensitive to, the perception of the taxpayers, having kind of top heaviness.
Yeah. It's designed to be a 5-person crew, so 3 different positions.
There's a lot.
A lot.
You're right.
Yeah. Yeah, and also I think we were cautioned a little bit in that process that anytime you create such a position, you're creating a precedent of that position.
They don't tend to go away.
Exactly.
No, they can't, yeah,
Right.
it's almost
It
impossible.
becomes part of the budget moving forward. I think it's deserved and I see both sides. I think it's worth exploring.
Okay.
But needs some serious thought.
Okay. Great. Item number 3 is planning commission. I had a conversation with Jared Weiss, who's the chair, and he's interested in developing alignment with the select board. This kind of resonated with what we have been talking about over the winter at different times. He specifically is interested in hearing from the select board, how broad or specific do you want the plan to be? If you look at the current plan, it's pretty specific. And there's a lot of action items in there that didn't get done, that will get done. And so he's trying to avoid that, but he also wants to, he wants it to be appropriate. And then what does the select board believe ought to be those top priorities? And I was sort of thrilled to hear that. I thought that kind of really matched some of the conversations we've had. So he'll be reaching out about how to make that happen, how to have that discussion.
He can, as the Historic Preservation Commission came in, we can just have a conversation with him at a meeting.
Yeah, that's right, that's right.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking what, maybe blocking out 20 minutes?
Yeah,
Perhaps.
that would be good, huh?
Yeah,
Should I ask him if he's available? Well, maybe not the next meeting. But
yeah, better not load up the next meeting. I
Yeah.
think we want that one to be
June or
short.
July.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, the year's gonna fly by for them.
Yes.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay. No, that's good. It's time to have a conversation with them. I'm glad he reached. out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the last one is a personal note. So to comply with the personnel policies, I'm gonna put in writing to you to disclose my intent to do a little bit of outside work, which will be, there's an association called the Regional Food Co-op Association. It's our New England in New York, upstate New York Association of Food Co-ops, and I'll just be doing 5 to 10 hours a month of leading a peer group and.
Oh, congratulations. Good for
Yeah,
you.
just to stay connected to that community.
Sure, yeah.
But I need to let you know that.
I think you can handle it.
Yeah, I would go on record recognizing that, clearly you've been able to stay on top of
Yeah.
keeping us straight.
Yes, yes.
So thank you, and good luck with that.
Thank you. Tegan, you want to add something?
No, I just wanted to, Barbara Sullivan did.
Oh, sorry, Barbara.
No, that's quite all right. Thank you. So I just wanted to see if you need to revisit the 8 o'clock agenda item about the rules of procedure. Given that we got another email from Dot today, and she asked for a response within 10 days. But now you've moved the next select board meeting to beyond 10 days. I just want to make sure that we've thought about that timing and that that's not going to create a conflict.
Okay, thank you, Barbara. I don't think what Dot issued was a notice of violation, so I'm not sure where she got the 10-day. And actually, it was 10 days after our meeting with the DRB, which as far as I know, hasn't been scheduled yet. So I don't think we need to worry about that at this point, but thanks, Barbara, for pointing that out. Okay. Yeah, I haven't heard from the DRB about that. Has anybody? Well, I was away. No, okay. I don't know what they're doing then. Anything else? All right. Look at that.
Anything on that shed versus Callis thing?
Oh, yes, sorry, there was one more item. Do you have anything to report, Jordan?
No.
Okay, thank you, Rose. In that case, I declare this meeting adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
Covered some ground today.
We did.
Yeah.
I think that's, directly related to the couple of weeks off that we've had.
3 weeks down. This is pretty nice.
Yeah, so I think we should make sure that that's, reflected in the data. and,
Sign a
Performance metric.
because Paul couldn't be here tonight, I will bring.
Well,
Tomorrow, have him sign it and I
Yeah.
will drop it off at the town.
Okay, Cory, yeah, you've got.
We have a
that
lot of
mixed
things to
up.
sign before any of us disappear.
I just look at them. They were, well, that's it, where everyone will nail their ballot and decide.
Yes, mine is not black, it is purple, I grabbed the wrong one.
Yeah. I think a lot of it is, yeah.
Keep up the good work.
Night, David.
You too, David.
Then I'll take this with me, I will have Paul sign it tomorrow night.
Good, there you go.
Drop it
I have a whole bunch of notes for you. Very good.
Sorry, couldn't get here. So we took notes.
Total chaos.
I forgot the mixer, so I had to like attach, I only had 2 mics.
Oh, no.
So many people now.
You know, it's a good thing, you know, I kind of.
I'm gonna take this with me, so Paul can put it in.
Yeah.
Take the meter tonight, I'll drop it off at the town office.
Okay, great.
Or say,
Sounds good, thank you.
thank you, sir. I like this.
I just celebrated my 30th anniversary at the hospital a couple of weeks ago. You know, it was our 40th anniversary for the hospital.
There.
Yeah. For the most part, it's
They're just 2
good.
weeks.
There's, sure.
There it is.
Yeah, we're not sure.
Now, what was your point?
But it's just one per pile, right? One page per pile.
Yeah, people say to me, "Any time you don't know," and I do know some people.
So, yeah, we talked about kind of,
Or, you know, they come back. I use it myself going 2 days a week or 3 days a week.
design standards.
I talk about nutrition, clinical nutritionist.
Pretty sure
Yeah, talk about
I've looked at them.
And then we said, everybody.
Probably know what I say.
Greg comes around and tells everybody. My wife will just be one rice.
Couple of friends who work there.
Yeah. Here's the highway plan.
You know, and we're walking. It's like-
Point us in that
I
direction.
heard movie references before, is it somewhere in this?
They used to be on the DOT, and I might actually have them buried, they just might be,
Are you talking about like the cross sections? I'm talking about.
yeah, and then there's like other design standards relative to like,
Remember the
depth
vice
and that sort of thing.
The room right here.
So you think that's all set then?
Right, but,
I think so.
but they always keep referring to the design